The story begins in the small, sun-bright town of Nyandira, a place where gossip travels faster than a boat on payday. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone talks about everyone, especially when something sparkles. And that's how the rumor about the waist beads girls began. It started one lazy Friday afternoon when Timo, a young radio presenter, lost his voice live on air right after complimenting a girl's waist beads at the market. The microphone squeaked, the power flickered, and someone shouted, "Those beads are spirits." From that moment, curiosity became wildfire. People began whispering that girls who wore waist beads carried secrets. Some said they could control men's minds. Others swore they were just symbols of beauty. But Timo, embarrassed by what happened on air, decided to uncover the truth. He pretended to be filming a documentary called The Meaning of the Beads, hoping to find something sensational to restore his reputation. His first interview was with Amina, a bubbly university student who laughed so hard her beads jingled. She told him, "These? They just remind me of my grandmother. She said a woman should always dance with her soul, not just her body." Timo nodded, disappointed. No magic, no mystery. But just as he was packing up, Amina said, "Though, they say if your beads fall on their own, it means love is coming." That line hooked him like a fish. Days later, while filming at a wedding, he spotted a girl named Nyla wearing bright emerald beads. She was dancing like joy itself, carefree, glowing. Then, suddenly, one of her bead strings snapped and scattered across the floor. The crowd gasped. Right after, the groom fainted. The music stopped. Everyone turned to Nyla, and Timo's camera was still rolling. The clip went viral within hours. "Waist beads knock out groom," screamed the headlines. Timo was famous again, but the fame brought more chaos than applause. People started accusing the girls of witchcraft, saying their beads caused men to lose control. Timo tried to calm things down, claiming it was just coincidence. But then strange things kept happening. Streetlights flickered whenever Nyla walked by, car alarms went off, and one night, his camera turned on by itself and played the wedding footage backward, whispering a melody he'd never heard before. He freaked out, called his tech friend Musa to check the footage, and Musa said, "Bro, this isn't corruption. It's like the files, singing." They followed the sound to a hidden line of code, not real code, more like rhythm. When reversed, it sounded like women humming an old Swahili chant. Timo, now obsessed, visited Nyla again to ask about it. She laughed gently and said, "Maybe you're finally hearing what you've ignored, women's energy." Then she told him to meet her grandmother if he really wanted answers. The grandmother lived by the lake, surrounded by green vines and the smell of hibiscus. She welcomed them warmly and said, "So, you're chasing beads, not understanding they're just storytellers." She explained that each bead color carries a wish, each string a chapter of a woman's life. Green for growth, red for love, gold for joy, black for protection. But, she added with a smile, men only see the shine, never the meaning. Timo laughed nervously until she handed him a small pouch and said, "Wear this one day, and you'll know." He did, and that's when things got strange. For a week, he wore the bead secretly under his shirt. Suddenly, he felt emotions differently, people's moods, music, even rain felt alive. One morning, he woke up crying without knowing why, and later found out his mother had been missing him deeply. Another day, a woman passed by smiling, and he felt pure joy in his chest like sunshine. It wasn't magic, it was empathy. The beads made him feel instead of just see. Then came the twist he never expected. During his live comeback show, the beads he wore snapped right as he confessed on air that he finally understood women weren't mysterious because of beads, but because they carried the world's emotions like invisible music. The studio lights flickered again, just like that first day, and people watching thought it was another curse. But this time, something different happened. The entire audience, men and women, stood up and started laughing. They weren't afraid anymore. They were free. After the show, Nyla texted him, "You finally heard the song." He smiled, looked at the broken beads on the floor, and decided to keep one as a reminder not of superstition, but of connection. The rest he gave back to the women who'd been mocked, telling them, "Your stories aren't spells, they're poetry." From that day, the town stopped treating waist beads as taboo. Instead, they became symbols of culture and confidence. Timo's documentary aired across Africa, titled The Song of the Beads, and it ended with his voice saying, "Maybe what we fear in others is what we don't understand in ourselves." After the documentary The Song of the Beads aired, Timo became a household name. People stopped him on the street to ask, "Bro, those beads, did they really make you feel people's emotions?" He'd laugh it off and say, "Maybe it wasn't the beads. Maybe it was just time for me to listen." But inside, he couldn't deny something strange still followed him. For weeks, every time he passed near a woman wearing waist beads, he heard faint melodies like whispers of songs only he could hear. Each tune was different. Some were joyful, others heartbreaking. Once, while waiting for coffee, he turned around to find a woman smiling softly. Her beads were blue and silver, and the tune he heard sounded like rain falling on a tin roof. She said, "You can hear it too, can't you?" before vanishing into the crowd. That night, Timo couldn't sleep. He played the same old wedding footage again and noticed something he'd never seen before, a shimmer of light connecting the women dancing. He zoomed in, and for half a second, the beads glowed like constellations. It wasn't just decoration. It was a language. Determined to learn more, he went back to Nyla's grandmother by the lake. She was sitting outside, weaving new beads, her hands moving rhythmically. He asked her, "What are these songs? Why can I hear them?" The old woman smiled and said, "Because now your heart is open. These songs were always there. You were just too noisy inside to listen." She paused, looking at him with eyes that seemed to hold centuries. "But be careful. The beads remember stories, even the painful ones." She gave him a strand made of deep blue stones and told him, "Take these to the hills at sunrise. If they glow, it means the story isn't finished." So, the next morning, before dawn, Timo climbed Nyandira Hill. The fog was thick, the air smelled like wet grass, and the sky was painted in soft gray. As he reached the top, he held up the beads and they began to glow faintly. Then, from behind the trees, he heard laughter, familiar, musical laughter. It was Amina, the first girl he'd interviewed. But she looked different now, calm, radiant, older somehow. She said, "You found the echo." Before he could ask what that meant, she walked toward him and placed her hand over the beads. Instantly, a vision burst through his mind, flashes of generations of women dancing, crying, celebrating, giving birth, surviving. The beads weren't magic charms, they were memory keepers. Each one carried a woman's story of pain, love, resilience, and joy passed down quietly through time. When the vision ended, Amina was gone again, and the beads turned to dust in his palm, blown away by the wind. All that remained was silence, deep and peaceful. Days later, Timo tried to tell people what happened, but the more he explained, the less they understood. So he stopped talking and started listening instead. He'd walk through markets, weddings, even funerals, not as a journalist anymore, but as a listener. And everywhere he went, he began to record the songs of women who wore waist beads, not with his camera, but with sound. Their laughter, their stories, their struggles. A year passed. His new project, Voices Beneath the Beads, premiered on national TV. This time, it wasn't about shock or superstition, it was about humanity. The final scene showed Timo returning to Nyla's grandmother, now very old and quiet. She watched his film on a small screen, tears glistening in her eyes. "You finally gave the beads their voice," she whispered. Then she said something that stayed with him forever. "Men build monuments to be remembered. Women wear beads to remember." After she passed, Timo buried her by the lake where flowers grew thick and the air always hummed softly, like unseen music. He placed a single gold bead on her grave, the same one that had broken during his first live show, and whispered, "Thank you for teaching me to listen." But that night, as he walked home, the streetlights flickered again just once, and he heard a faint, familiar hum. The same chant that had once scared him now made him smile. It was as if the beads were saying goodbye, or maybe hello again. And so the mystery never truly ended. People still wear waist beads for beauty, for love, for protection. But for those who watch the Song of the Beads, they now know every shimmer carries a heartbeat, every color hides a story, and every string is a bridge between the seen and the unseen. So if one day you see a girl walking confidently, her beads glinting softly under the light, don't rush to judge or guess. Just listen, because after this, you'll never see girls who wear waist beads the same way again.